The rhythmic patter of rain against the window pane provided the only sound in Sarah Mitchell's dimly lit living room as she absent-mindedly scrolled through her phone, her bare feet tucked beneath her on the well-worn couch. The flickering glow of the true crime documentary playing on her television cast eerie shadows across the walls, the narrator's grave voice detailing yet another unsolved disappearance that bore uncomfortable similarities to her own quiet suburban neighborhood. Sarah glanced at the clock, 9:37 p.m., and felt her stomach growl, reminding her she'd skipped dinner again while lost in her writing. With practiced ease, her fingers navigated the food delivery app, automatically selecting her usual order, a large pepperoni pizza with extra cheese, garlic dipping sauce on the side. The app cheerfully informed her the order would arrive in approximately 30 minutes, and she tossed her phone aside with a satisfied sigh, stretching her arms above her head as she settled deeper into the couch cushions. The sudden, sharp knock at her front door barely 10 minutes later made her jump, her writer's imagination immediately conjuring images of late-night visitors with sinister intentions. She shook her head at her own paranoia, no doubt fueled by the crime show's ominous tone, and padded barefoot to the door, pausing to check through the peephole. The distorted fisheye view revealed a figure in a red pizza delivery uniform, standing on her welcome mat, his face partially obscured by the brim of his cap and the shadow cast by her porch light. Something about his posture seemed off, too still, too patient, but Sarah chalked it up to the late hour and the miserable weather. "Already?" she called through the door, her voice laced with skepticism. "Special promotion tonight," the delivery man replied, his voice oddly flat and devoid of the cheerful tone most service workers affected. "Priority delivery for regular customers." Sarah's fingers hovered over the deadbolt. The explanation made sense. She did order from this place at least twice a week, but some primal instinct made the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. The smell of warm pizza that seeped through the narrow gap beneath her door decided for her. She turned the lock and opened the door just enough to pass a few folded bills through the gap, keeping her body safely behind the sturdy wood. "Keep the change," she said, forcing a polite smile as the delivery man's unnaturally cold fingers brushed against hers during the exchange. The brief contact sent an involuntary shiver down her spine, and she quickly withdrew her hand, eager to close the door on the uncomfortable encounter. It wasn't until she turned back toward her living room that she realized something was terribly wrong. The pizza box still sat on her porch, untouched. She hadn't taken it from the delivery man, and when she whirled around to look through the peephole again, the shadowy figure had vanished into the rainy night without a trace. Sarah stood frozen in her entryway, her breath coming in short, panic bursts as she tried to make sense of what had just happened. The pizza box on her porch seemed to mock her with its normalcy, the cheerful logo of Mario's Pizzeria glaringly bright against the dark wood of her porch. Her small terrier Max, who had been sleeping peacefully in his dog bed moments before, now stood stiff-legged by her feet, a low, continuous growl rumbling from his throat as he stared intently at the front door. "Easy boy," Sarah murmured, her voice trembling as she reached down to stroke Max's head. The dog's unusual behavior only amplified her growing sense of unease. Max never growled at delivery people. If anything, he usually wagged his tail hopefully for scraps. Steeling herself, Sarah opened the door, just wide enough to retrieve the pizza box, her eyes darting nervously around her darkened front yard as she did so. The rain had intensified, creating a shimmering curtain that obscured her view of the street beyond. No cars, no sign of the delivery man, just the steady drumbeat of rain on pavement and the occasional flicker of distant lightning. Back inside with the door securely locked behind her, Sarah placed the pizza box on her kitchen counter with trembling hands. The smell that wafted up when she lifted the lid was overpowering, not the familiar aroma of melted cheese and tomato sauce, but something sharper, almost chemical. Her stomach turned as she lifted a slice, noticing immediately that the cheese had an unnatural sheen to it, the pepperoni arranged in a perfect spiral pattern that no busy pizzeria would ever take the time to create. Her phone chose that moment to buzz loudly on the counter, making her jump. The screen lit up with a notification from the delivery app. "Your order from Mario's Pizzeria is being prepared. Estimated delivery time, 25 minutes. The message might as well have been a physical blow. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she stared at the screen, her mind racing. If her real order was still being prepared, then who had just come to her door? And why had they left a pizza she never ordered? A sudden movement outside her kitchen window caught her eye. Sarah's head snapped up in time to see a shadowy figure pass by. Too quickly for her to make out any details, but the flash of red she glimpsed could have been a delivery uniform. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she ducked below the window line, pulling Max down with her. Think, Sarah, think. Her neighbor, Mr. Peterson, had installed security cameras after a package theft last month. If anyone could confirm whether the delivery man had left her property, it would be him. With shaking fingers, Sarah dialed Mr. Peterson's number, her eyes never leaving the window as she waited for him to pick up. Hello. The elderly man's voice was gruff with sleep. Mr. Peterson, it's Sarah next door. I'm so sorry to bother you so late, but did your cameras pick up a pizza delivery guy at my house about 10 minutes ago? There was a long pause on the other end of the line, long enough that Sarah began to wonder if the call had dropped. When Mr. Peterson finally spoke again, his voice had dropped to a whisper. I saw him, Sarah. He came to your door, but he never left. Sarah's blood turned to ice at Mr. Peterson's words. The phone nearly slipped from her sweat-slicked fingers as her mind raced through terrifying possibilities. The pizza box sat innocently on her counter, its cheerful logo now seeming sinister. Max's continuous growls escalated to sharp barks directed at her front door. She forced herself to think logically. First, verify the threat. Sarah crept to her laptop, keeping low beneath the windows. Her security system showed 4 camera angles, but the feed from her front porch was mysteriously offline. The other cameras revealed nothing unusual, just rain-lashed darkness. Then the lights flickered. A loud thud from upstairs made Sarah gasp. Max shot toward the staircase, barking furiously. The sound had come from her home office, where she'd been working before ordering dinner. Her pulse pounded in her ears as she grabbed a heavy cast-iron skillet from the drying rack. Her phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. You okay? Just got your weird voicemail. Coming over to check on you. Sarah typed a frantic reply when another text immediately followed. I'm outside. Open up. Relief flooded through her. Lisa was here. Everything would be okay. She hurried to the door, Max at her heels. As she turned the deadbolt, something stopped her. Lisa never announced herself twice, and she always parked in the driveway, but no headlights had illuminated the front windows. Sarah peered through the peephole. Lisa stood on the porch, her familiar leather jacket visible, but her posture was all wrong. And why was she just standing there, not ringing the bell again? Lisa! Sarah called through the door. No response. Then Lisa's body collapsed forward like a marionette with cut strings, her face slamming against the door with a sickening wet thud. As she slid down, Sarah saw the glint of a knife handle protruding from Lisa's back. A shadow moved behind Lisa's fallen form. The delivery man's voice whispered through the door. Special delivery, Sarah. Sarah stumbled backward, a scream trapped in her throat. Max's barks turned to terrified whimpers as he pressed against her legs. The doorknob rattled violently. She grabbed Max and ran upstairs, her bare feet slipping on the hardwood. The second floor was dark, too dark. The power must be out up here. Her breath came in ragged gasps as she barricaded herself in the bathroom, the only room with a sturdy lock. The house fell eerily silent. No footsteps. No more rattling doorknobs. Just the relentless rain and Max's panic panting. Then her phone lit up with a FaceTime call from her own number. Against every survival instinct, Sarah answered. The screen showed a fisheye view of her bedroom across the hall. The camera panned slowly to reveal her closet door, standing ajar. Inside, barely visible in the gloom, was a small red blinking light. A hidden camera. The feed switched to show her living room from an impossible angle, high in the corner near the ceiling. Another camera she'd never installed. Then the killer's voice came through the phone, distorted and whisper close. I've been watching you sleep for 17 nights, Sarah. You look so peaceful when you dream. The screen changed again, showing live footage of her trembling in the bathtub with Max. The camera was inside the bathroom with them. Sarah smashed her phone against the tiles, the screen shattering into spiderwebs of glass. She had to move. Now, the bathroom's small window offered the only escape. She shoved it open, wincing as the old frame screeched in protest. Cold rain immediately soaked her clothes as she wriggled through, dropping painfully onto the roof of her back porch. A crash came from inside the bathroom, the killer breaking down the door. Sarah didn't look back. She jumped from the roof, rolling awkwardly on the wet grass. Max yelped but stayed close as she sprinted toward Mr. Peterson's house. Halfway across the yard, motion-activated floodlights suddenly blazed to life, illuminating the rain-slicked grass in stark white light. Sarah froze as her shadow stretched long before her, and then a second shadow appeared beside it. She turned slowly. The delivery man stood 3 feet away, his uniform now streaked with Lisa's blood. In one hand he held a pizza cutter, its blade gleaming in the artificial light. In the other he dangled a keyring Sarah recognized, her spare house keys that had gone missing weeks ago. "Delivery's not complete until you sign for it," he said, smiling. Sarah ran. The killer's laughter chased her through the storm as she veered away from Mr. Peterson's house. She couldn't lead this monster to her elderly neighbor. Instead, she doubled back toward her own home, reasoning she knew its layout better than the killer did. The back door hung open, swaying in the wind. Sarah hesitated only a second before plunging inside, Max at her heels. She needed a weapon, something better than a frying pan. The basement, her father's old hunting gear, was stored down there, including a shotgun he'd taught her to use as a teenager. The wooden basement stairs creaked ominously as she descended into darkness. The smell hit her first, something metallic and foul. Then her fingers found the light switch. The concrete walls were covered in photographs, hundreds of them. All of her. Sarah at the grocery store. Sarah jogging in the park. Sarah sleeping in her bed. But worst of all was what stood in the center of the room, a life-size dollhouse replica of her own home, complete with miniature furniture and a tiny figure lying in the bedroom. A crash from upstairs snapped her out of her horror. The killer was inside. As Sarah reached for the shotgun on the wall, the basement door slowly creaked open above her. The shotgun blast echoed through the basement as Sarah fired blindly up the stairs. A pained grunt told her she'd hit her mark. She racked another shell and advanced, her hands shaking but her aim steady. At the top of the stairs, the killer slumped against the wall, his pizza uniform now stained dark red from the wound in his shoulder. But he was still smiling. "Sarah, Sarah," he tooted, holding up his hands. One still clutched her spare keys. "This isn't how you treat someone who's been so attentive." Sirens wailed in the distance. Mr. Peterson must have called the police. The killer's smile widened. "Looks like our first date got cut short," he said, pushing himself upright with a wince. "But don't worry, I'll be back for the second course." Before Sarah could react, he darted out the back door and vanished into the storm. Police found Lisa's body where it had fallen against Sarah's front door. They found the hidden cameras, 7 in total, including one in the shower. They found the drugged pizza still on the counter. What they didn't find was any record of the delivery man. Mario's Pizzeria had no employee matching his description. No neighbors besides Mr. Peterson had seen him. Even the security footage showed only blurred images, where he should have been. At the hospital, a detective handed Sarah an evidence bag containing Lisa's recovered phone. "There's something you should see," he said grimly. The last text message sent from Lisa's phone, time-stamped after her death, read, "Your next delivery is scheduled for 1 week from tonight. Be home by 8:00 As Sarah stared at the message, her own phone buzzed with a notification from the food delivery app. "Your usual order from Mario's Pizzeria is on its way. Expected delivery time, 8 p.m. next Friday." The screen flickered. The delivery driver's photo appeared, a blank silhouette where his face should be.